I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Cannon. As lifelong Disney fans, the work of countless talented Disney creatives have shaped our lives.
Now, as the Disney catalog expands, we're taking a journey through film and television to discover if that spark that shaped us as children lives on in adulthood.
Does your favorite Disney media still cast that same spell? Join us as we find out. We are Rewatching the Magic.
Hi, Kiki.
On your left.
Oh, come on.
Hiya, Tuesday.
We are about to enter a brave new world with Sam Wilson's first feature film adventure as Captain America. So we have decided to go back to Sam Wilson's first appearance in the MCU in Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Now, we schedule these movies a while in advance when we're going to do this, and this was already on our schedule, and then everything happened.
That everything comes at you fast, doesn't it?
Yep. And honestly, because of that everything, I think this is a movie that needs to be watched again now more than ever. I would even say the upcoming movie is a movie that needs to be out there and needs to be seen by everyone. Again, especially given everything. I think the world needs a Black Captain America now more than ever.
Yep.
We have talked about other MCU films before. We have talked about a few films and some of the TV shows that happened after this movie. But coming back to this movie, we have talked about a lot of these actors already. But, shout out to Anthony Mackie. Now that I mention Anthony Mackie, I want to address something recently, as of this recording. Anthony Mackie has said some things that have made people question him as Captain America, has made some people angry. And I'm going to read what he said, a small quote of it. And he says, "The Captain America represents a lot of different things, and I don't think the term America should be one of those representations. It's about a man who keeps his word, who has honor, dignity, and integrity." And a lot of people angered about that because Captain America should be about America. And to those people, I say, have you watched these movies? Because clearly you haven't. And I want to go back to words that Chris Evans said about playing Captain America way back when the original movie came out, Captain America: The First Avenger. These are the words of Chris Evans. To me, I'm not trying to get too lost in the American side of it. This isn't a flag-waving movie. It is red, white, and blue, but it just so happens that the character was created in America during wartime, when there was a common enemy. Even though it is called Captain America, I said it before in interviews, he feels like he should be called Captain Good. He was created at a time when there was an undeniable evil, and this guy was created to fight that evil. I think that everyone could agree Nazis were bad. And he, Cap, just so happens to wear the red, white, and blue. There is no difference from what Chris Evans said to what Anthony Mackie said. The only difference is that one was said by a white man and the other was said by a black man. If you think Captain America should be all about America, you have not been paying attention to any of these movies and are just looking at the words Captain America. Even in this movie, even in the original movie, in basically every one of his appearances in the MCU, Steve Rogers has gone against his very own government because he knew what they were doing was wrong. He did the right thing, even if it made him a fugitive of the law, which it does. It does in this movie, it does in Civil War, and it kind of does all the way into Endgame.
Honestly, it did in the first movie. I mean, he leaves base and goes AWOL to save Bucky and the unit that Bucky was with in his first real mission as Captain America. That is a thing he does. He does the right thing because it is the right thing. He does not follow the orders of the American military. The orders of the American military are, you are a propaganda tool, you are an actor, you are not, you are technically a soldier, but you are not an active duty combatant. And he says, screw that, I have the skills, and the right thing to do would be to go AWOL, to go to the base, the Hydra base I know they're being kept at, and to save all of these people from Hydra. And that is what he does. That is what Mackie is talking about there.
Mm-hmm.
That is not necessarily America. That is just Captain, let's go beat up Hydra and save people because that's the right thing to do.
And it's also the same that people have also said the same things about Superman. That Superman is all about the American way. And it's like, yeah, that was a catchphrase before, but Superman does the right thing. He would and has gone against his own government to do the right thing. This is why I'm glad we're getting a Captain America movie and a Superman movie in 2025. We need those characters to be those characters as they were written, to remind people that it's more important to do the right thing than do the easy thing.
Remember that when we're talking about Captain America and we're talking about Superman, created at roughly the same time for exactly the same reason.
Mm-hmm.
There was a great evil. It was exactly the same evil. The same type of people saw the threat of that evil, and they were trying to raise awareness on what the evil was, why you should fight that evil, how you should fight that evil, why you should fight that evil. And yeah, there's an import to that, and we used to understand that, and I'm afraid that some people have forgotten, and maybe we need to remember.
Both Superman and Captain America created by Jewish men.
They were people under the threat of extermination, and they saw that threat coming, and they tried to warn people, and they tried to tell people, what was up, and bless them for doing so. May all of those men be remembered in blessed memory. So, yeah.
That's why in the modern day, we do need a black Captain America. We need a Latino Spider-Man, because those are the communities that are marginalized right now. Those are the communities that, let's be real, are kind of spotlighted and put under attack.
Let's talk how we get from, the very early stages of this passing of the torch. We will finally see the fruition of that. If you're listening to this at some point in the future after the movie has dropped, this has no spoilers for Brave New World. We have not seen it yet. So no spoilers for Brave New World. This is, Winter Soldier and anything that has come out through 2024.
So Yeah, we've talked about all of these actors already in some capacity, maybe not in the MCU capacity, but we've talked about pretty much everybody in this movie. Refresher, of course, we have Chris Evans as Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, Scarlett Johansson as Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow. We have Sebastian Stan as Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson, the Falcon, Colby Smulders as Maria Hill, and Sam Jackson as Nick Fury. We do get cameos from Haley Atwell as Peggy Carter. Our new additions to the MCU in this one. Frank Grillo as Brock Rumlow, a.k.a. Crossbones. Emily Van Camp as Agent 13, Sharon Carter. And as our main villain, the legendary Robert Redford as Alexander Pierce. At the time, I would say Robert Redford was the most highly decorated actor they had ever gotten to for an MCU movie at that point. Not counting like Sam Jackson like that.
Well, Sam Jackson is a moneymaker, but has not really won a awards as you would think. Yeah. Which is really sad, in my opinion.
Yeah, he deserves those flowers.
When he is asked about the fact that he has not really won a lot of awards, he says that he doesn't really pick roles with the intention to win awards. And let's look at the man's career. It is a good career.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's gonna,
Mm-hmm.
But you're not hooking up with Tarantino that often if you're looking for the Oscars. Like, I'm not saying that there's not Oscars to be had there. I'm just saying that's not the usual method of getting them,
Mm-hmm.
He likes him in action film,
Mm-hmm.
And he goes after movies for the culture too. Like, let's give the man some respect for that.
Mm-hmm.
He does movies that he thinks might either make him a hefty paycheck, which I will respect that as well, or he does it because he thinks it's going to be fun, or he does it because he thinks it's going to be important to something,
Mm-hmm.
Or he does it because it made him laugh, like Snakes on a Plane.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he kind of fully admitted that he did Snakes on a Plane because, like, he got that script in the mail and he was like, I just read the title of that and I was like, yeah, F it, I got to do that one.
I love me some Sam Jackson, but like I said, I'm pretty sure at this point in the MCU, getting Robert Redford to be in your film is a whole different ball of wax.
The side tangent there was, please give Samuel L. Jackson more gold statues.
Yes.
Just cause. I want to point out that we got a whole bunch of interesting cameos in this movie.
We get another returning cameo, Gary Shandling, reprising his character from Iron Man 2.
Yeah. He's the senator who decided to grill Tony Stark.
F you, Mr. Stark. F you.
Yeah. We now find out in this one, shock of shocks, he's working for Hydra.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple of other returning cameos. The interesting thing is that one of the secondary villains in this And you sent me a very interesting YouTube video on this little worm.
Max Hernandez as Jasper Sitwell. At the time, oh, this is a really cool character. He's funny. Oh, he's in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. too. We got connections. He's in the short with Clark Gregg talking about the consultant. He's a background character in some of the movies. He's a recurring character in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And he's in the movie. It's all connected. Oh, he's Hydra.
Until you sent me that video today, I did not realize that that was all the same dude. Face blindness and everything, and my memory not being all that great. But you sent me that amazing compilation video, and shout out to whoever did that on YouTube.
Yep, it was all his appearances in the MCU and in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And
I did not realize that Jasper Sitwell had such a long history in the MCU. He shows up in Thor, he shows up in the Avengers, he shows up in several Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episodes. I need to go back and rewatch that series. This is like the culmination of his character. He freaking dies in this movie. This is the end of his character. He gets such an ignominious death in this, and if you aren't really paying attention, you might miss how absolutely pancaked this little dork gets at the end of this movie. Yeah, because, like, Bucky just grabs him, pulls him out of the car, throws him, and then you hear him getting hit by a car. You don't even see him getting hit. Actually, it's worse than that. If you follow him, you actually do see it, but it's in the background and it's out of focus. But you can actually see him get pancaked. Because Bucky pulls him out of the car and throws him behind Bucky, okay? So Jasper gets pulled from the car and thrown into the opposite traffic lane where he is hit head on by a speeding semi. He is pancaked by an oncoming semi in the opposite lane of traffic. I actually rewound the movie and watched that a couple of times to make sure I saw it. And it's just, and they just move on from it. Because he's just such a wormy character at that point. We mentioned this when we talked about the first Doctor Strange movie, but yeah, this is the first mention of Stephen Strange, and it is it is Jasper saying it. Yeah, this movie is the first time we get the Easter egg of there's gonna be a Doctor Strange movie. The fact that early in the timeline, Hydra is already seeing Stephen Strange as a potential threat. And at this point, he's just a surgeon in New York. Now, granted, this was just the Easter egg to let the audience know, hey, a Doctor Strange movie is coming down the line. But it also shows the algorithm, the Zola algorithm they're putting in there. It goes by every facet of your personality, every, what you spend your money on, what you're tweeting on social media, how you vote in elections, and they will come up that this person is going to be a problem down the line. Algorithms causing a problem in the nation. What a weird plot point for a movie. Yeah. And since I have mentioned him, we get it's more of a voice cameo than anything else, but Toby Jones does reprise his role as Arnim Zola from the first Captain America movie. I would call this a legitimate appearance rather than a cameo. This is probably the closest we'll get to Zola in his comic appearance, because if you've ever seen Zola in the comics, he has a robot body, he has a camera for a head,
and he has a screen in his chest that shows his face. And that's kind of what we get here, only it's a stationary computer.
Yeah. They say that Zola ended up getting terminally ill in the 70s after being recruited via Project Paperclip.
Yep, that it was a real life program that the U.S. did, recruiting German scientists and engineers and technicians. And hey, they did this for the Germans in World War II. Imagine what they could do for us.
And when we say German, you know which kind of German we mean.
Who did Hydra work for again?
Yeah, that kind of German. The Hydra kind of German.
Yeah. And in this movie, we found out, they didn't actually change allegiances. They just infiltrated the American government and took it over and are just doing the same thing that they did before, only it's with full cooperation of the U.S. government. I'm going to let that sit there. Got it? Good.
Yeah. There may be some real world stuff there. There's always been some ideas that the real world Project Paperclip people may have not changed allegiances either.
And, but, Zola's already a C-level, D-level villain, so he wasn't going to be a big threat in any of these movies. Speaking of C-level, D-level villains, especially Captain America villains, I just want to mention him once, but we have George St. Pierre, and I cannot say his name without saying it like this, so forgive me, Kiki, forgive me, dear listener. George St. Pierre as Bartok Zilipa. And again, he's a C-level, D-level Marvel villain. A Captain America villain, sure. But again, he's no threat. But I am happy that they did bring him back for the Falcon and Winter Soldier show. And he does some leaping in this movie. So he does live up to Zilipa.
I don't remember if I got to talk about her when we did Avengers, because she's in there, but you can't really see her. You get to see her more in this. But Jenny Agutter is the one female member of the council. And I just wanted to shout her out as such a big impact on my childhood. She was in 2 movies I watched obsessively as a kid. She was in Logan's Run and American Werewolf in London. But I remember her more in Logan's Run. Because she was Jessica Six in Logan's Run. Logan's Run was just an absolutely insane movie. If you've never seen it, go watch it. Dang, she's so good. But shout out to her. She's amazing. And then I kind of want to say we've already kind of mentioned Frank Grillo playing the Crossbones here. He's also the recurring dude in the Purge movies. He's kind of awesome in those too. So, not a small part in the MCU, but bigger part in the Purge movies.
Yeah, I mean, this movie sets up Rumlow like he's going to be a big deal, and then they just do absolutely nothing with Crossbones.
He does kind of set up the inciting incident for Civil War, but then he dies.
I get it, like Zola and Bartok, he's not exactly A-level supervillain, but Come on, this movie sets it up so well that he could have been a bigger threat than what he was.
Like at least a B-level villain, you know?
Mm-hmm. Because I was so hyped after this. Oh yeah, Captain America versus Crossbones in a movie. That would have been awesome. And then we got what we got.
You know what sucks? They made him sign a 7-picture deal.
Yeah, that sucks. And 7-picture deal to kill him off in his second appearance.
Yeah. Can you imagine thinking you're gonna be a recurring villain for 7 movies? And then you basically get a 5-minute cameo at the beginning of the second film.
And we'll bring you back for Endgame to redo that.
That one scene, yeah.
So let's kind of go into what the movie is. I mean, what happened right before this movie? What does this movie? Okay, this movie is about Captain America going against his own government because they're violating people's privacy. The entire point of this Insight program is to find out potential threats to what there was a potential threats before they become threats using this algorithm. Coming, basically spying in on people's private lives. This is the NSA. This is the Patriot Act.
We had just before the movie came out, started to get wind of companies like Palantir and what they were up to. We didn't know the full scope of it yet, but this movie ended up being kind of prescient about it.
Yeah. And, Cap sees that S.H.I.E.L.D. is doing this. S.H.I.E.L.D. is invading people's privacy to find out crimes before they're happening. And, Cap even says, usually we arrest people after they do crimes, not before them. And I love that line that Steve says here. This isn't freedom. This is fear. And this is, like I said, this is Steve going against his people, his government, his agency. He's going against S.H.I.E.L.D. He's going against the U.S. government, who wants to use this algorithm to seek out potential threats. And he's saying, this isn't what I signed up for. This is not freedom.
This whole movie and the entire Hydra plan, and this is a long game that Hydra has been playing, is revealed when they talk to the Zola computer brain in that bunker in Jersey. Zola tells them that Hydra's plan is that Hydra realized that if you walk in at weapon point and you say, "Hi, we're here to take over," with these, weapons, people will immediately go, "No, my freedoms. I will fight you for them." But what Hydra, and Hydra as a stand-in for, any fascist movement, discovered was that people can be tricked into giving away their freedoms, into voting away their freedoms, into handing away their freedoms. Okay? This is absolutely based in historical fact. Almost every fascist coup in history has been achieved via initially legal means. You know?
Mhm.
The group that Hydra is based on in history were voted into power in a completely democratic election. They did not do anything. Please go back and look at your history of Germany at that time period. They won a completely legal election. They did not vote tamper. They convinced people to vote for them. Now, after they won that vote, they started to change laws and change, and by the time that they started to do things that would be seen as illegal, they had enough military force in place that it was difficult to stop them, because at that point you were coming up against, hello, I have a weapon and I am here to take your freedom. And that is Zola's point. That is what Hydra realized. That if you do it correctly, people will vote away or give away their freedom.
In the name of safety.
Generally, in the name of safety, that is the quickest way to do that. But they could do it for other reasons. They might do it for cheaper eggs, just to pull a random thing out of the air.
Yep.
So Zola's point here is based on historical fact, and the point of the algorithm, you keep saying, they're going to, and Steve gets this wrong in the movie as well. Steve keeps saying, like, oh, we don't punish crimes until after they're happening. The algorithm is not meant to punish crimes before they happen. They're not worried that Stephen Strange is going to commit a crime. Stephen Strange is going to fight back.
The S.H.I.E.L.D. version, as Nick Fury understands it, and what Hydra is actually doing are two different things. As Nick Fury explains it, that's how Steve is reacting to it. When Zola tells him, no, this is what we're really doing. And then Sitwell confirms it. We're going by their personalities. We're going by their shopping history, their social media history, their dating profile, every little thing on the internet. Because the internet is everything that you have on yourself. They can determine if you will become a threat to Hydra in the future, hence why they said Stephen Strange. Now, like I said, Stephen Strange is still a surgeon in New York. So why would a surgeon in New York be a threat to Hydra? Well, everything about this man will say that at some point in the future, he's going to become a threat. He's going to fight back. This guy who hates authority, this guy that's so self-centered, who will do anything for himself, is going to stand up and say, this doesn't work for me. I'm going to fight you. And it might be anyone else. They could have dropped any name, but that was the movie that was in development, so they dropped Stephen Strange.
And you can see later on when they show the targeting parameters, they're targeting Tony Stark. There are a couple of other Easter eggs in what they're targeting that let you know the types of people they are targeting.
And, Pierce says, we're going to protect 7 million people by killing 20 million. Is that protection or is that securing Hydra? There's an old phrase. Give people the illusion of freedom and they'll never know that they're a prisoner. And that's kind of what Hydra is doing. They're saying, we're going to protect you. we're going to kill the bad guys. But at the same time, now all you have to do is say the wrong thing at the wrong time and you're a target.
Coming back to the reason we're talking about this movie now, I like that Steve is a good enough judge of character to see that Sam is one of those people that's going to fight back and that he can be trusted in this.
Like Dr. Erskine said, it's not about being a good soldier. It's about being a good man. Steve Rogers is Captain America not because he's a good soldier that can follow orders. He's not Captain America because he has a fancy suit. He's not Captain America because he has a shield. He's not even Captain America because he has a super soldier serum. He's Captain America because he's a good man. Even in that first movie, before any of it happens, he's fighting bullies, knowing he cannot beat them, knowing he's going to get his ass handed to him. But he does it anyway because it's the right thing to do, because he's a good man. And he sees that in Sam. Sam straight up says, Captain America needs my help. Who am I to refuse? Sam is a more experienced soldier than Steve is. Steve was taken out of basic training to become a mascot for the war. And then thrusted into combat after he disobeyed orders. And he never really finished the war to begin with because he was put on the ice. Sam did 2 tours. Sam was a paratrooper. Sam actually has all of the skills to be a good soldier. But in the end, it's his heart. It's him being a good man that is the reason that Steve and Natasha trust him in this movie.
I think it's really important that we see what Sam is doing after his tour is over, because he now works for the VA. And he works for the VA as a counselor, working with people who have PTSD, who are having trouble integrating back into civilian life.
Which he says to Steve he had the same problem.
Yeah. And he sees it in Steve at their first meeting.
Mm-hmm.
He immediately realizes that Steve is having trouble sleeping and why he's having trouble sleeping.
As a soldier, he's sleeping on the ground. Now that he's back home, sleeping in a proper bed, it's too soft for him. We even see this in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Bucky sleeps on the floor.
Yeah, which I like as a nice little callback as well.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about Steve and Sam's first meeting, because there's so much fun in that. I mean, we referenced it in the opening, but it's such a nice little meet cute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they introduced Sam right at the beginning of the movie, and I like that. And then there's like that on your left. And like, it gets such a big part in this movie. Then when you hear Sam say on your left in Endgame, when I was watching the movie in the theater, the entire theater cheered. Because they knew what that meant.
Oh, yeah. Such a good moment in the film. But I love this meeting, and I love how Steve is, I mean, he's kind of messing with Sam, but it's good-natured rather than mean-spirited.
Imagine the cardio on Steve Rogers. Like he has, as he says, he can do this all day. Man does not get tired. and and, and I love Sam just sitting there and it's like, you know what? Oh, you're disappointed in yourself? Go take another lap. Oh, did you do it already? Did you already do the lap? You must have.
Yeah, but this introduces one of my favorite things, which is Steve's little notebook that he's been keeping.
Of all the
Uh,
things he's missed.
yeah, all the stuff he's got to catch up on now that he's unfrozen and has some time. Because he did not have time to catch up. He basically got unfrozen and immediately had to go into the Battle of New York.
Yep. Oh,
Poor
hey,
guy.
I'm unfrozen. Oh, I'm in the 2000s. Oh, aliens.
But now that he's got some time to theoretically decompress, he realizes that he has no idea what's happened over the last 80 years or so. And now he's got to catch up, and people have been telling him things to
I
look
want.
up.
I wonder how much of that is Natasha, because we really do go into the Steve Natasha friendship in this movie. We,
It's
we
such a cute friendship.
and I mean, it really is reflective of Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson's real life friendship.
Yeah, they make a nice on-screen double act.
Yeah.
I love the list of stuff that he has written down. The list I didn't realize until later on apparently changes depending on what country you watched it in, because the US and Canada got a list that includes I Love Lucy, the moon landing, the Berlin Wall going up and down, Steve Jobs, Disco, Thai food, Star Wars, and Star Trek, and he has already seen Star Wars. He's got that crossed out. Nirvana, the band. Rocky, and then possibly Rocky 2, there's a question mark. And then Sam has him write in the soundtrack to Trouble Man.
It is one of Marvin Gaye's greatest albums.
Yeah. Apparently, if you go to, if you were watching it when it released in the UK or Ireland, instead of I Love Lucy, he was told to check out Sherlock. So I guess there's also your, hey, we've got Benedict Cumberbatch joining the MCU. He is told to look up the Beatles instead of the Berlin Wall. Steve Jobs gets switched out for the World Cup final in 1966. Instead of disco, they want him to look up Sean Connery. He's still told to look up Star Wars and Star Trek, but apparently he hasn't gotten around to watching Star Wars yet. In South Korea, if you were watching, he's been told to look up Dance Dance Revolution. He has been told to look up Old Boy. Yeah, he's going to have fun with that movie.
Both versions.
Well, I'm assuming they're meaning the original Korean version. Yeah. Instead of the 66 World Cup, they want him to look up the 2002 World Cup. Disco is back on the list. He still has not seen Star Wars. And the rest of the list remains the same.
I mean, Disney has done this with different movies where they'll have like one scene that accommodates the location of the movie just for that audience, and like in Zootopia, the newscasters will change to animals of that particular region. In like Inside Out, in America, it's broccoli or Brussels sprouts, and in other countries, it's other foods that children in that vicinity would not like. Kind of. So Disney has a rep for that.
Yeah. I do like some of the other like localizations, like in Latin America, they want him to look up Shakira. In Italy, they want him to look up the Ferrari victories at the F1. In Australia and New Zealand, they want him to look up both AC/DC and Steve Irwin, as well as Skippy the Bush Kangaroo. So there you go. In Russia, he's told to look up Yuri Gagarin, which, I mean, everybody should look up Yuri Gagarin. In France, they want him to look up Daft Punk and the movie The Fifth Element. In Germany, they want him to look up Oktoberfest.
He can't get drunk.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, I just think I love those differences, and I love what they think is culturally relevant in each country. And I love that in Brazil, he's told to look up Xuxa, which is hilarious because I used to watch Xuxa when I was little. So, like, you should even look that up if you're in America. But I guess that is niche for, like, very specific millennial reference, I guess. But anyway.
Like I said, yes, we see the beginnings of the friendship between Steve and Sam, but the friendship between Steve and Natasha is fun. And the running gag of Natasha trying to get Steve to get a social life by
specifically a date.
Yeah, like, dude, you just been in the ice since the 40s. Go out and meet somebody.
I mean, have you ever even thought, you know, like...
I mean, we also, I mean, I know that you personally was not a fan of that ending in Endgame, but he is still kind of hung up on Peggy. He's still
it is not the Peggy thing that I had a problem with in Endgame. Which leads us to why this is called The Winter Soldier. I mean, can we get to why I had a problem with that Endgame ending?
Sure.
I mean, this is the Winter Soldier movie, of course. And the Winter Soldier, big spoiler alert, Bucky is still alive. He survived the fall from that train in the first movie. And he has been a prisoner of Hydra ever since. He was brainwashed. He was turned into their assassin. And, yeah, he's here. And he's the bad guy. Now, I was trying to figure out, by asking friends and acquaintances, if you did not read Marvel Comics and only knew the MCU, was this the twist that the movie seems to suggest they wanted it to be?
Because throughout the movie, you don't see Sebastian Stan's face until the big reveal. Like, he's always wearing this mask. He's always in shadow. It's not until Natasha shoots his goggles that he takes his goggles off, takes the mask off, and you see Sebastian Stan's face.
And Steve sees his face. Like, the audience is supposed to find out when Steve finds out. Theoretically.
Mm.
And I always wondered how this went down for people who did not read comics. Because if you read comics even just a little bit, you knew this for ages before this movie came out.
Mm-hmm.
The Winter Soldier and the fact that Bucky survived to the modern day was not a mystery to anyone.
I mean,
who read comics.
Yeah, I was not an avid comic reader at the time, but I did play Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1. And that is in there, where you fight the Winter Soldier, and they have this conversation between himself.
This is insane, Winter Soldier. Why are you launching that nuclear missile?
It's my mission. And as I remember, missions were always the most important thing to you. No matter who had to die to accomplish them. Give up, Cap. It's over.
You know me better than that, kid.
Yeah, I suppose I do. So let's finish this, old man. I've got a city to nuke.
Marvel Ultimate Alliance, good game series. If you haven't played it, you should.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you knew Marvel outside of just the MCU, this was not a secret.
Yeah.
So you already figured, like, watching him fall off that train, everybody was like, "Aw, poor Bucky, poor Steve." All the comic book fans were like, he's gonna be back. Like, if they make another one of these movies, he's coming back, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The people who only knew the movies, the movie seems to play this like the audience is supposed to be as shocked as Steve.
I remember seeing it in the trailer. Like Steve is there seeing and says Bucky, and then Winter Soldier says, "Who's Bucky?" Like, I swear that was in the trailer.
I mean, it may be one of those that came out, like, you know, a week after the movie dropped, and then they were like, "Why haven't you seen this movie yet? Here's more spoilers for," you know.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to figure out how this played, and I mean, small sample size, I know, but it seemed that from the responses I got, people were saying that they weren't super surprised because they felt that the movie itself kind of telegraphed it, or they were surprised because they had forgotten who Bucky was. Which I kind of feel them, because there are so many characters in the MCU that, like, okay, like Crossbones, when he shows up in Civil War, I did not remember who that dude was. And he kept saying something about, like, "You dropped a building on me." And I just kept thinking in the theater as I was watching that scene play out, that sounds like that would have been a really interesting scene. Like, Captain America apparently dropped a building on this dude. I would have liked to have watched Captain America drop a building on this dude. They seem to have beef. I wonder when that happened. And the answer was the previous freaking movie.
But also the actor is in heavy prosthetics and makeup, so he almost unrecognizable.
Yeah, one, he was unrecognizable, and two, they didn't really give much of a setup of, like, hey, remember that guy who used to be a SHIELD agent and then was a Hydra agent and was the, like, secondary villain in the last movie? That's the guy we're chasing now.
They just say, "Rumlow's on the move." well, who's Rumlow?
Yeah, it's not like if they'd ever given him the name Crossbones in the first movie, that might have stuck in my head. Like, I hate to say it, but the reason that comic book characters have catchy one or two name monikers that are like, it's Captain America, it's the Black Widow, it's the, whatever, they're easy to remember.
It's probably why later, when they eventually did Black Panther, they gave an explanation of the nickname Killmonger. Because you can remember Killmonger. Like, if I were to say, oh, what's Killmonger's real name? And someone would say Eric Killmonger. And it's like, technically, that's not the name he's given in the movie. That is the name. Killmonger is a nickname. His first name is Eric, but he's not Eric Killmonger.
Yeah, and the thing is like, that's not his name, and also that's not like his Wakandan name either.
Yeah. So if it'd been like, oh, this is Rumlow, they call him Crossbones because he has XXX kills.
Yeah, and the thing is he's not even technically called Crossbones until the second movie.
They call him that on the action figure. They never call him that in the movie.
Yeah. So it is a problem that the MCU has a little bit, is that while they're not afraid for the movies to look more like the comic books, sometimes, like, they don't call Black Widow so much, they call her Natasha most of the time, which I kind of get, because, like, are you going to stand around and call your friend by their superhero name,
Yeah.
all the time? Or are you going to call, just hanging around the base, Are you going to be like Cap and Widow, or are you going to say Steve and Natasha,
Yeah.
But there's like a reason that the fans remember, or why comic book characters tend to have like really weird names that normal people would not really have. Like Nick Fury is a comic book character name. That's not like a normal dude's name, So it makes it easy to remember. So when you get to the movie after this and they're just like, oh no, we've got to go catch Rumlow. And I'm like, cool, I wonder who this Rumlow guy is. Wonder what his deal is. Let's meet Rumlow. And it's like, oh no, you already know everything about him. It's like, oh, do I? Slightly better branding of your minor villains is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
The only reason I can remember Zemo is because he sounds like a really bad alcoholic beverage.
And he's never really called Baron Zemo until the Falcon and Winter Soldier show. He's just Zemo.
Try the crisp, refreshing taste of Zemo.
But to go back to what I was saying before of the Nat Steve friendship throughout the whole movie, and kind of Nat trying to teach Steve how to be a spy, and Nat saying, put your arm around me and laugh at what I say so they think we're a couple, so they don't pay attention to us. Kiss me, because these kind of things to get people don't want to watch this, stuff like that to kind of.
When she says public displays of affection make people uncomfortable, and his response is, yes, they do.
But in the comics they'd have had their relationship, but I'm glad that they did not go there in the movies. I wish they had given Nat a different romantic partner in the movies, but that's a different discussion for a different movie and a different time.
Yeah.
But he just we should ask out this girl, we should ask out that girl, get out there. It's been 80 years, go out there and do something. But
I know you're hung up on Peggy, but have you considered her granddaughter or whoever that chick is?
Niece.
What? Look, if you can't have Peggy, pick another hot chick in her family. That's all I'm saying.
And that's the thing, is that the character of Sharon Carter was created because they still wanted that Steve-Peggy dynamic from the original comics, but now Steve is in the, quote, modern day, and Peggy would be too old for him. So they created Sharon Carter.
And also dead.
Yes. But like, and she was originally a carbon copy of her aunt. That was, she looked like Peggy. She acted like Peggy. She was Peggy. And then they eventually decided to make her own unique character, which I get why they did not get Haley Atwell to play Sharon Carter. I get it, because the reveal of her as Sharon Carter was supposed to be a surprise. But there is that itch in my brain, is that, would this have been any different if this was Haley Atwell as Sharon Carter?
I don't know.
Also, speaking of Peggy, her as a bedridden...
Well, she's an Alzheimer's patient.
Yeah. Her having Alzheimer's, her being in bed, it's like... I feel like if that's what you're going to do to Peggy, why have her in the movie at all?
I mean, look, they did not know about the nonsense they were going to pull with Endgame. So they were trying to give them, like, kind of a sweet send-off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this was them trying to say, like, Peggy had a nice life, even though there's regrets between them. And she's trying to say, like, look, I had a husband of some sort, I had children, I lived my life, go have a life of your own.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry that we didn't work out. Sorry things sucked. But go forth and live a life.
And maybe that's what Steve needed. Yeah, he can have his friends tell him, hey, get out there and have a life, but to have his best girl say, I had my life. I lived my life. Go live yours. But there's always the next fight for Steve Rogers. He said that at the beginning of the movie, when he meets Sam, he's putting himself into the missions. He's putting all of himself into getting back into the fight. And he's not getting the same satisfaction of fighting the bad guys in the modern day than he was fighting the bad guys in World War II.
I kind of wish that this had been the end with them. I know that you think my problem with Endgame's ending is the whole thing with Peggy. It's not. It's a little weird, but that's not the biggest problem.
I have no idea when we're going to get to Endgame, so go ahead.
Yeah. The biggest problem with Endgame's ending is, if there was just a way for Steve and Peggy to be together, that would be fine. But Steve and Peggy being together in the way they are means that Steve went back in time and left Bucky as a prisoner of Hydra in full knowledge.
He let Hydra grow, being back there. He let history play out as it played out. He didn't change anything. Because we see old Steve at the end of that movie.
Yeah. So let's think about everything that comes about, even just one thing, okay? He knows that Hydra has Bucky. And he knows that Hydra is within S.H.I.E.L.D. Okay, just those two things. I'm not even saying that he could, go back and take out the Fuhrer or anything. Nothing so grand. But just those two pieces of information from the Winter Soldier. Who goes and takes out Mama and Papa Stark? Bucky does. Now, I'm not saying that they might not have tried if they didn't have Bucky, but there weren't exactly a lot of successful outcomes from that Winter Soldier program.
I mean, we're talking about this post What If Season 3. We did kind of get an answer for that.
You know what? I'm just going to say it right now. What If Season 3 angered me so much. Not as much as that part of Endgame, but we can get into that later.
Okay.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There are so many bits of fallout, including the fact that Natasha says in this movie that she has had run-ins with the Winter Soldier before and has been injured and almost killed because of it prior to meeting Steve.
And I understand that is a lot of people's complaints, is that Steve went back and didn't do much to change any of the history, let history play out. All he did was get Peggy, and them going back and saying that the husband that Peggy talks about in this movie is Steve, that is what issue that did bother me. Because
she has a picture of him. You're telling me that Steve would recognize a picture of himself?
It's true. I mean, that's not Chris Evans in the picture, obviously, but they didn't know. They didn't do it till after Endgame. It's all retcons and it's confusing.
Also, if he does go back, tangent universe or whatever. But, well, one, that's not Steve in the picture. Okay? And if that's not Steve in the picture, that means that's another man and another man's children, and Steve just wiped those two children from existence.
Yeah, it's just confusing. When they go back to Jersey, the military base that Steve was on, the SSR base, which became the first S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. One thing I do like, and you see the founders of S.H.I.E.L.D., you see Howard Stark, you see Peggy Carter, and you see Tommy Lee Jones's character from the first movie. And I'm pretty sure that's the last time that character ever gets referenced in the MCU. I mean, I like that those three are shown to be the founders of S.H.I.E.L.D.
You said earlier that Steve is not Captain America because he's a super soldier. He's Captain America because he's a good man. Steve is willing to go out on the helicarrier at the end of the movie thinking that Bucky has already shot him like 3 times at the end of the movie. And he's like, okay, I'm wounded. I don't quickly see a way out. And he's finally gotten all the chips in to make the helicarriers target each other instead of innocent people. He tells Maria, go ahead and hit the firing button. And she's like, you are still on that helicarrier. And he's like, I do not care. It's now or never,
Yeah, his way out was Sam, and Sam got his wings cut off.
We've seen Steve make long jumps before, like 3 times already in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So even without a parachute, we know he's over water. We know Steve at full strength could make that jump. But he's injured, and he's not going to leave Bucky behind.
With him till the end of the line. That's what he says.
Yep. With you to the end of the line. So they're either going out together or they're making it out together. But he's not leaving him behind again. If Steve gives them any more time, they might get the targeting parameters back. And so there's Steve, good man, jumping on the grenade.
The sacrifice play.
It's a moment.
I love that after, they're fighting each other. Is that, you know me. No, I don't. And it's kind of repaying the favor as Steve saves Bucky from the crash, and it's Bucky that pulls Steve out of the water, kind of repaying that favor.
Yeah.
But also, his memories are fuzzy. Like, we see it earlier in the movie. He's been out of cryo freeze so long that his old memories are starting to pop back up. So what do? They wipe his memory again. It's a painful procedure, but he's like, all right, give me the mouth guard, put the thing on my head. We've done this before. We'll do it again, and we'll just blank slate. What are the orders? But now that that's not there anymore, Hydra has been dismantled, and Bucky's on his own, trying to find out who he is, what he was, and trying to forge what he will be. We get that post-credit scene of him at the Captain America exhibit looking himself up. Trying to find who he was. Who is this guy named Bucky, and why is he so important to Steve Rogers? Which would shape that character going forward from this point on, pretty much to now. Again, we haven't seen the Thunderbolts yet, so we'll see where that's going to go.
Yeah, I will say that, speaking of the Captain America being a good man, and all, is that one of the reasons why Steve picks Sam for that torch passing is because, not only of what he did after he ended service, but because of what he did in the service. He did 2 tours, yeah, but he did 2 tours not just as, like, regular Air Force. He did 2 tours as pararescue. He is the guy that goes in there and pulls other guys out of the fire,
Mm-hmm.
And that is And one, it's an extraordinarily dangerous job. In the real world, you're usually jumping in there with a parachute without, I mean, I'm not saying like completely unarmed, but the people that do that are generally not so much protecting themselves. They're going in there while other people cover them to try to save others, you know?
Mhm.
So, like, they're at greater risk going into a heavy fire environment to pull people out in extremely dangerous circumstances. And that's, I mean, man, what a job, you know?
Yeah. And, I don't know how the Falcon wings play into it, but I guess it's a way to get in quickly and out quickly.
Yeah, I mean that was the explanation originally for the Falcon wings, is that instead of sending people in via parachute, you know,
Hmm.
if you're trying to get wounded personnel out of enemy territory quickly, that wingsuit would be a really nice thing to have in real life, you know?
Like
So,
yeah, I mean, and he just throws that envelope, that folder down, Project Falcon. And yeah, since we are at the end of the movie here, I want to say this ending is so good and it showed so much potential for what the MCU could go. Hydra is exposed. Shield is dismantled. Bucky's on the run. Steve is following him and Sam is with him. Natasha is now exposing Shield secrets and Hydra secrets to the world. She's testifying in court. Nick Fury has burned everything down. He's abandoned the eye patch. All of the Shield agents are now working in different divisions. And it is all undone by the time we get to Ultron.
yeah,
All of that potential is thrown away. Ultron is a fun movie, but if you're watching Ultron right after Winter Soldier, the ending of this movie is completely undone. And it's just frustrating. But I want to talk about one moment before we wrap up here. The one technician guy, after Cap's big speech saying Hydra has infested S.H.I.E.L.D., we don't know how many are here, but we know they're here. Don't listen to them. And Rumlow is saying launch those helicarriers. The one tech is saying no. Captain's orders. Be that guy. He is scared for his life. There is a guy with a gun to the back of his head that will blow his brains out if he doesn't launch those ships. And he is saying, no, I will not do this. This is wrong. Be that guy.
do not comply. And Sharon stands up and he's like the man said, Captain's orders.
Yeah.
And Shield versus Hydra, you know.
Yeah. This whole movie has great stunt work. The elevator fight is amazing. Like, by itself, we could probably do an entire podcast just on the elevator fight.
Yeah. I think while the elevator fight is iconic, I think the better done fight scene technically is the roadway fight between Cap and Bucky just after he figures out who Bucky is. It's the knife fight scene.
Ah, yeah.
I will say that is probably the most inventive and technically brilliant fight scene in the MCU. Shout out to James Young, who is the fight coordinator, and also Sebastian Stan's stunt double for this film. You know, he probably choreographed both those scenes, I would guess. And brilliant work to him or whoever choreographed that, and to all the stunt performers and to the actors, you know, when you can see their faces for the work they did. And I know everybody's thinking like, well, you know, you've got your Shang-Chi and you've got, you know, I mean, I'm not saying there haven't been other MCU movies with excellent fight choreo, but nothing nails it to me quite like this particular movie. I think the fight choreo is just top notch in this one.
And to wrap it up, our other post-credit scene, the first appearance of Pietro and Wanda Maximoff in the MCU.
He's fast and she's weird.
But yeah, Captain America the Winter Soldier. Kiki, does Captain America the Winter Soldier have the magic?
Yes, have you been listening?
Yeah, it definitely does. It's like I said at the top of of this episode, this is a movie that we need now more than ever. This is a movie that needs to be watched again and again and again. You know, if Brave New World is half of the political thriller that Winter Soldier is, it's going to be an amazing movie.
Yeah, I really hope it's good. I really need it to be good.
Yeah. So, as for next week, this is going to be a double first watch, I believe. We are going to be watching the most recent Disney animated film, Wish, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to watch Disney's big 100 celebration and what they came up with in this movie. So yeah, come back next week as we talk Wish, and we will talk to you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Don't let the magic stop here.
Keep the conversation going. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Rewatching the Magic.
We are also on Blue Sky, rewatchingthemagic.bsky.social. And new episodes are available every Monday at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com and youtube.com/@rewatchingthemagic. Remember, the magic is for everyone.
It only stops if you let it.
We know that right now, things are tough.
But in the words of Jim Henson, the only way the magic works is by hard work. But hard work can be fun.
Check out our show notes for ways that you can help.